I also want to thank my colleagues in Aurora. It's been such a privilege working with you all, and also thank the European Commission for your trust and for the good collaboration that we had with you. So one of the kind of key rules in communication is that you need to focus your communication for the audience that you're speaking to, right? And we all have different hats. Some of us are scientists, some of us are parents, some of us may be musicians as well in our free time and so on. But something that unites all of us is that we are all consumers. And this article was shown already once today. This kind of threw a ripple through the scientific community, at least, because suddenly what we were doing behind closed doors in rooms like this, usually dark, separated from the public and the outer world, talking about science, suddenly was thrown out into the public, reaching consumers that then probably quite a few of them fell for this clickbait and read the article. The article itself actually wasn't so bad, but I think we were all a bit shocked about the bombshell title. Because what it really did was it dragged this uncertainty out into the open. And we've heard a lot about the uncertainty today, but to consumers, uncertainty can mean a lot of different things. Now, why does this matter? Because people really care about health, and they especially care about these chemical contaminants. So I'm going to show you a few statistics now from the Eurobarometer 2025. So you can see people really are concerned about the presence of chemical contaminants in their foodstuff. And I'm including micro nanoplastics in that category right now. But when you drill a bit more into the Eurobarometer data, you can see that specifically microplastics are popping up as a key concern. Contamination of foodstuffs with microplastics. It's not number one across all Europe, but in certain countries like Germany and Austria, it's the top concern that consumers have right now. And it's been there for a few years now. Also, awareness in general for food safety topics. Again, you can see here microplastics popping up there in the top 5. So this issue of microplastic in foodstuff really is important to consumers. And now, if they want answers, where do they turn to? Who do they trust? And you can see here that, well, obviously medical doctors, and we have at least one in the room who will be up on stage in a minute. They are the most trusted source of scientific information. That us scientists, independent scientists working on these issues are in second place, right? And it's only further down the list that journalists pop up and the national authorities are also there. So we have a huge responsibility when we communicate these issues, right? By the way, The Guardian does too. So just to summarize these facts, EU citizens are concerned about chemical contaminants. They are aware of microplastics in foodstuffs, and independent scientists are considered trustworthy sources. Now, citizens globally think that we scientists should communicate about the science with the general public. And this is a survey that was published recently, carried out in 68 countries worldwide. And you can see here that I want to highlight here the bottom bar. Does this work? Maybe not. That scientists, in the eyes of the general public, scientists, more than half of the general public thinks that scientists should communicate about science with the general public, right? So just putting that there is a societal need. We are trustworthy for the general public. Are we actually trained in science communication? I think that's a big gap here. And that's maybe something we should have also added in our research roadmap, or maybe in the, bless you, in the sort of needs for university development, that we have to train our scientists in science communication. I think there's a big opportunity right there. So what's the best way for us to reach the general public? And again, obviously, there are many different subsets of general public, but you can stratify by age, you can stratify by gender, you can stratify by political background and so on. But across all, overall, Eurobarometer still thinks television is one of the best channels to reach the general public. And so I will show you now what we did, just a little snapshot in our science communication in AURORA, how we reach the general public, working with Arte, working with Elodie Bonnes, who's a documentary filmmaker, putting together the Homo Plasticus documentary. How many of you saw this movie? Did you watch it? Couple? Okay. So you have something to do tonight. It's online. You can watch it. It's translated into English. And I want to send a huge shout out to Justin Boucher here in front, who spent a lot of time working with the journalists, connecting the team from Arte with our scientists, and making sure that that all went smoothly. So thank you so much for doing that work, Justin. There's a lot of effort that goes into communication, which oftentimes is not appreciated. So I think this is a nice highlight, and we did so much more. Please check out our website, check out our social media channels, and there's still more to come because we're still waiting for some of the research findings to be published, and we will be doing our social media and mainstream media outreach on that, and also reaching out to The Guardian. This is another movie that AURORA was not directly involved in. Our friend Leo Tresander over here was part of this documentary, The Plastic Detox, that aired mid-March this year on Netflix. Who of you has seen that? Yeah, a few more than Homo Plasticus. Okay, this is also very worth watching. We stayed in the background here, but we did help the producers, gave them a lot of input, advised them, and also helped with the communication strategy accompanying this. So again, a lot of work that went into this to get the science right. And then there's a couple more examples here. Recent media coverage, our colleague Barbara Scholz-Böttcher in this German article. And then I don't know if you saw it, but this is hot off the press, published today. Greenpeace put out this report, Tiny Plastics, Big Problem. They analyzed microplastics and plastic chemicals in these baby food pouches. Have you seen these pouches that you can buy everywhere now? And this is a really interesting report, not in terms necessarily of the science, but in terms of the communication potential, outreach to the general public and to policymakers. And again, something where we were helping in the background, getting the science right. Okay, so back to our bombshell and back to the uncertainty. We've heard quite a bit about uncertainty today. In the different presentations, it was sort of sprinkled in. Well, there are different types of uncertainty that still prevail with the issue of micro nanoplastics. There is this epistemological uncertainty, the technical uncertainty, and you know, probably most relevant is what are the exact levels of micro nanoplastics that me, you, babies are carrying in their bodies right now? Well, you should have learned now from the presentations that we don't have these exact numbers yet, but further research will fill these knowledge gaps. But there is no consensus uncertainty among us scientists about these issues, namely that the normal and intended use of plastics generates micro nanoplastics. I think that's a really important point. That's very important to understand. Humans are exposed to micro nanoplastics through inhalation. We heard that from Amanda's talk, but also other routes, ingestion, for example. We also heard from Juliette, from Lawrence, that the smaller particles especially cross biological barriers, they cross cell membranes, they get into tissue and cells. We saw some of the results that Juliette shared on the hazards. Immune responses are triggered, a couple of other effects. We're still working out the details there, but this is reliable evidence already available on the hazards. And there is, to conclude, also what Wu was saying, reason for concern, and that mitigation of exposure is needed and recommended by us independent scientists. So I think maybe just the last point, it may be a little bit self-serving because I personally work a lot more on chemicals and plastics. I do think that there's a little bit of an artificial separation between microplastics and chemicals. It's kind of all part of the same family, and we have so much evidence on the chemicals, exposure levels, and the health impacts. So yes, if you want more information, and maybe not just for the general public, but for specifically policymakers, we've also published a whole bunch of policy briefs where we summarize the information. And with that, I would like to hand back to Roald for some guidance on how we move forward. Thank you.